Why do the kindest people suffer the most? Why do you give your loyalty, your time, your truth, and still end up abandoned? Why do those without conscience seem to glide through life, while you're constantly at war with yourself? No one told you this, because they don't want you to know. Because the moment you wake up, you stop being easy to control. This isn't some philosophical lecture. It's a warning. A rough, bleeding truth you've been ignoring for too long. If you still believe that being good automatically earns you justice, stop right here. You're not losing because you're not good enough. You're losing because you don't realize you're in a game. And worse, you're the kind of player who doesn't even know the rules. Machiavelli never told you to be evil. He told you to stop being naive. To understand that in this world, the survivor is not the nicest person. It's the one who knows when to stay silent, when to be cold, and when to disappear without warning. If you're still clinging to the fantasy of a fair world, get ready to be shattered, because what you're about to hear will burn through everything you were taught about morality, goodness, and yourself. So ask yourself, are you ready to hear the truth? If not, turn this off. If yes, then be quiet and listen. They never taught you how the world really works, only how to behave, how to hope, how to stay small. You were raised to believe that if you just work hard, stay loyal, keep your head down, and do what's right, everything would eventually work out. But no one taught you how to survive betrayal. No one warned you that your kindness could become currency in someone else's manipulation. No one prepared you for the silence that follows after you've given your all and received nothing in return. This is the pain they never put in school books. The pain of watching those you trusted walk away when you're no longer useful. The pain of realizing your goodness was never reciprocated. It was exploited, not because you were weak, but because you believed the game was fair. And Machiavelli, he never believed in fairness. Because fairness is not a principle of reality. It's a bedtime story told to the obedient. You weren't betrayed because you were bad. You were betrayed because you expected loyalty in a world that rewards leverage. And here's the part that stings. You gave them access to your time, to your trust, to the parts of you that no one else saw. And they used it, not out of hatred, but indifference. Picture this. You're standing in a dark room, holding the remnants of everything you gave while they've already forgotten your name. You thought loyalty was a virtue. They saw it as a tool. Machiavelli didn't write for the admired. He wrote for the forgotten, for the man who gave too much, for the woman who stayed too long, for anyone who's ever asked, why wasn't I enough? You were enough, but you played the wrong game. You followed the rules of morality in a world built on strategy. No one told you the truth, that this world doesn't reward good people. It rewards useful people, valuable people, and value isn't measured in effort. It's measured in perception, in control, in timing. Let's make this brutally clear. If you're too kind without boundaries, they will drain you. If you're too loyal without leverage, they will use you. And if you're too forgiving without consequence, they will forget you. Because the world doesn't operate on fairness, it operates on advantage. This is not a call to become cruel. It's a call to become aware. Because your innocence, if left unchecked, will become your cage. Your softness, if not armored, will become your grave. You've been taught to avoid conflict, to be polite, to never speak up when something feels wrong. But let me ask you this. Where has that silence gotten you? How many times have you swallowed your voice just to keep the peace? while your spirit shattered behind closed doors. You suffer, but you do it quietly, because you think that's noble. It's not. Machiavelli saw what the world doesn't want you to see. That nobility, without power, is just performance. That suffering, without strategy, is just submission. That if you don't learn how to protect yourself, they will keep taking, not because they're evil, but because they can. This is the pain of not knowing the rules. This is the pain of believing the system sees you. It doesn't. It sees your output, your obedience, your silence. And when you finally break, it replaces you. If any of this resonates with you, it's not because you're broken. It's because you're waking up. You're starting to realize that maybe, just maybe, your suffering wasn't a mistake. It was the result of being good in a system designed to reward something else entirely. And that changes everything. Because once you see the game, you can learn how to play it. Not as a pawn, but as something far more dangerous. A player who sees, a player who waits, a player who learns to strike, not for revenge, but for balance. That's what Machiavelli offers you. Not cruelty, not manipulation for its own sake, but power. The kind of power that doesn't scream, it doesn't beg, it doesn't break. It simply stands, unmoved, unshaken, and unbothered by whether or not the world approves. This is how you begin, not with anger, not with blame, but with the truth. You weren't taught how to survive. So now, you will teach yourself. And before we move on, ask yourself this. If this pain was never personal, only systemic, what happens when you finally stop playing by their rules? The answer starts now. They dressed it up, made it sound noble, taught you that kindness was a virtue, that politeness was power, that if you just stayed generous, humble, and soft, life would eventually reward you. But here's the truth. Kindness without clarity is a trap. Kindness without boundaries is a weapon used against you. And kindness without awareness is not virtue. It's submission, dressed in morality. They told you to do the right thing, but never explained who defines right. They said, turn the other cheek, but never taught you how to defend yourself. They glorified sacrifice, but never showed you who profits from it. Machiavelli saw through the game. He saw that society doesn't reward kindness. It rewards usefulness. It rewards leverage. It rewards those who understand the system and bend it quietly. And while you were helping everyone, no one was helping you. While you said yes to everything, they forgot how to value your time. While you gave second chances, they took third, fourth, and fifth. Because society doesn't respect the kind, it respects the strategic. The one who knows when to say no, when to walk away, when to give and when to withhold. You weren't taught that. You were trained to be agreeable, to avoid conflict, to be liked. But being liked is not the same as being respected. And being respected is not the same as being safe. You can be loved by everyone and still be used by all of them. Because people don't always treat you how you deserve. They treat you how you allow. Let that sink in. If you tolerated disrespect, you invite it. If you're always available, you become invisible. If you never set a boundary, they'll push until nothing's left of you. This doesn't mean you stop being kind. It means you redefine kindness. Real kindness has a spine. Real kindness says enough. Real kindness protects itself first, then gives from overflow, not emptiness. There is no virtue in being exhausted. There is no nobility in letting yourself be used. There is only silence, followed by regret. And while you're still wondering if you're being too harsh, they're calculating how far they can go before you snap. You think saying yes makes you a good person. It doesn't. It makes you easy. Machiavelli would tell you, a wise man knows when to appear kind. But a wiser one knows when that kindness must end, because fake morality is a prison. It keeps you apologizing for things you never did. It keeps you soft in situations that demand steel. Stop asking, what will they think of me? Start asking, why do I need their approval? Kindness is not approval seeking. It's strength under control. So here's the new rule. Be kind, but unpredictable. But generous, but selective. Be forgiving, but not forgetful. Be good, but never easy. Because in a world that teaches you to sacrifice, the most powerful thing you can do is stop bleeding for those who wouldn't give you a drop in return. That's not cruelty. That's self-respect. And self-respect is where real power begins. And now ask yourself, what if your kindness wasn't the problem? What if it was just unguarded? Let's fix that. You've been told that showing emotion is a sign of authenticity, that it's strength to cry, that it's brave to be vulnerable. But let me ask you something brutal. When has your vulnerability ever protected you in a negotiation? When has your honesty ever stopped someone from betraying you? When has your emotional openness ever made the ruthless more merciful? Exactly. Machiavelli never said emotions were bad. He said they were dangerous. Not because you feel them, but because others see them. And once they do, they know exactly where to strike. In the game of power, visibility is liability. Your anger, they'll provoke it. Your love, they'll leverage it. Your guilt, they'll weaponize it. The truth is simple. He who controls his emotions controls the room. He who loses his emotions loses leverage. Do not misunderstand this. You are allowed to feel everything, but you are not allowed to reveal everything. Control is not suppression. Control is direction. It is taking that fire and choosing where it burns. And more importantly, who it touches. The world teaches you to react, to post, to rage, to explain. But reaction is a gift to your enemies. Silence is a sword they cannot block. They expect you to fall apart. They expect you to defend yourself, to justify, to apologize. So what happens when you don't? What happens when you simply observe, unshaken, unfolding the situation like a strategist, not a victim, not a pleaser, but a surgeon of perception? That's when fear shifts. It's no longer you fearing them. It's them questioning you. Because emotion makes you predictable, but control makes you terrifying. They don't know how much you've seen. They don't know what you're planning. They don't know where your line is. And that unknown is power. This is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming untouchable. Because emotional discipline is not the absence of humanity. It's the presence of clarity. And clarity is rare. It's uncomfortable. It's threatening, especially to those who manipulate by confusion. The world will call you distant, aloof, arrogant, They will beg for your reaction. They will interpret your silence as weakness. Let them. You are not here to be understood. You are here to be effective. And effectiveness requires edge. Look at history. The leaders who ruled empires did not speak with trembling voices. They didn't explain their every move. They mastered the art of presence. They walked into rooms and shifted gravity, not with noise, but with restraint. Because emotion is loud, but power whispers, and that whisper pierces deeper than any scream. So the next time you're in pain, don't announce it. Harness it. Don't collapse. Convert. And remember this: the one who keeps his calm in the face of chaos is the one who cannot be broken. That's the difference between those who survive the game and those who master it. And now, if you've ever lost power because of emotion, it's time to take it back. Quietly, deliberately, completely. You've been taught that speaking up is strength, that expressing yourself is necessary, that silence is weakness. But Machiavelli knew the opposite. In the world of power, silence is not surrender. It is signal, it is calculation, it is fear, in its most quiet and effective form, because silence makes people uncomfortable. It forces them to guess, and guessing is where power begins. The loudest person in the room is rarely the one in control. They speak to be noticed. They react to be respected. They explain to be accepted. But the truly dangerous man, he says nothing. He lets the room bend around his presence. He makes people uncertain. He lets others fill in the blanks with fear, with curiosity, with caution. That is power. You think silence is passive, but it is the most active tool of dominance. It demands attention without asking. It shifts dynamics without movement. Let me be clear. You do not need to explain your boundaries. You do not need to justify your standards. And you do not need to voice every emotion to validate your experience. Sometimes, power is preserved by what you don't say, by what you withhold, by what you allow others to wonder. Because once they know what angers you, they can use it. Once they know what you fear, they can control it. Once they know your limits, they can test them. But if they know nothing, they play careful. They speak soft. They never assume you are weak. This is the genius of controlled silence. When you don't explain, they wonder. When you don't react, they project. When you don't chase, they question their own value. And questioning is where manipulation fails. You see, emotional manipulators thrive on predictable reactions. But when you give them nothing, no anger, no validation, no engagement, they are lost. Silence becomes your armor, your signal, your warning. The world doesn't expect you to be calm. It expects you to break, to overexpress, to give it all away in words. But the king doesn't explain his moves. The general doesn't tell the enemy where he'll strike. And you are building your kingdom now. So learn this. When you're disrespected, don't argue. Withdraw. When you're underestimated, don't prove yourself. Observe. When they expect your reaction, disappoint them with silence. Because reaction is often weakness in disguise. But restraint is unmistakable power. You don't have to scream to be heard. You don't have to prove to be seen. You don't have to talk to be felt. You just have to be unshakable. unmoved, unpredictable. And that begins in silence. The kind of silence that makes them question everything. What you know, what you want, what you're willing to do. That is the language of the powerful. Few speak it, even fewer master it, but those who do don't get crushed. They do the crushing walker. And now, if the world's noise has buried your presence, it's time to become the quiet they can't ignore. Machiavelli said it clearly. It is not enough to be powerful. You must appear powerful. Because in this world, perception is reality. And whoever controls perception controls the game. People don't follow truth. They follow certainty. They follow confidence. They follow the illusion that someone knows what they're doing. And the master of power, he doesn't need to control facts. He only needs to shape how those facts are seen. That's why you'll see incompetent men rise, because they understand image. That's why the honest worker gets overlooked, because he doesn't know how to perform. That's why lies told boldly often win over truth, spoken timidly. Machiavelli understood something. Society hides. That people want to believe, not in what's real, but in what looks real. So if you don't shape their perception of you, they will. And they will always shape it to your disadvantage. You think honesty speaks for itself, but it doesn't. You think your work will earn recognition. It won't unless it's presented through the right lens. Because influence isn't about being the best. It's about being believed. And belief is a performance. Let me be clear. Controlling perception isn't lying. It's curating. It's strategic truth. It's understanding that how something feels is more powerful than how it is. Say less, but say it better. Show less, but show it stronger. Don't just be competent. Be compelling. That means you don't overshare. You don't reveal weakness before it becomes strength. You don't ask to be understood. You build a narrative so tight, so precise, that others want to believe it because it serves their need for clarity. This is how leaders emerge, not from raw talent alone, but from crafted image. You must learn how to create silence around your persona. Mystery, respect, uncertainty. Let them think you know more than you say. Let them wonder what you're planning. Let them fill in the gaps with fear, with awe, with admiration. Because once you control how others feel in your presence, you control how they act in your absence. Think of perception as armor. When it's built right, people hesitate before testing you. Not because they know what you'll do, but because they don't. That is fear by design. That is respect without negotiation. You want to stop being dismissed. Control how you enter a room. Control your tone. Control your image. Make your presence say more than your words ever could. Remember this: people don't treat you how you are. They treat you how they perceive you. And you have the power to engineer that perception. So do it. Deliberately, strategically, without shame. Because this isn't about manipulation for ego. It's about survival. In a world that rarely rewards the honest, but often bows to the believable. You don't have to deceive. You only need to direct. Control the spotlight. Control the silence. Control the frame. Because if you don't, someone else will. And if they control how others see you, they will control how the world treats you. You were told to be loyal, to stand by your people, to stay true. to never walk away. But loyalty is not what you think it is. Machiavelli didn't trust it, because he understood a brutal truth. Loyalty is not based on love. It's based on benefit. People are loyal to what serves them, not what saved them, not what supported them, not what sacrificed for them. You can bleed for someone, and they'll still leave. Not because you weren't loyal enough, but because your loyalty became irrelevant. And in the real world, irrelevance is death. We've romanticized loyalty, turned it into a sacred value. But in power dynamics, it is a transaction, a temporary contract, and like any contract, it can be broken the moment it no longer pays off. Think about it. The employees who gave their life to a company laid off in a single email. The friends you covered for who disappeared when your reputation was on the line. The leaders who praised your loyalty until someone cheaper came along. Loyalty without leverage is servitude. It's not admired. It's expected. And once expected, it's no longer appreciated. It becomes background noise. A given, a weakness. They'll say you've changed when you stop being loyal. But what they mean is, you stopped being predictable. You stopped being theirs. Machiavelli would tell you, don't offer loyalty. Offer value. Make them want to keep you not out of sentiment, but out of necessity. Because here's the ugly truth. People don't betray you for no reason. They betray you when the reason to stay becomes weaker than the reason to leave. So give them a reason, or give them distance, and never confuse familiarity with allegiance. Just because they've stood beside you doesn't mean they'll stay behind you. Just because they laughed with you doesn't mean they'll fight for you. Loyalty is not love. It's economics. This doesn't mean you become cold. It means you become clear. You recognize that real alliances are forged through aligned interests, not just shared history. You stop begging for loyalty and start building influence. Because when you have power, real, strategic, quiet power, loyalty becomes a side effect, not a requirement. They'll stay, not because you asked, but because leaving you would cost them more. That's how you make people loyal, not through sacrifice, through significance. If you give too much for free, they'll forget its worth. If you offer unconditional loyalty, they'll test its limits. So be the kind of person they don't want to lose. Because what you bring is too sharp, too rare, too valuable to replace. Not the one they can guilt, but the one they can't afford to betray. And if they do betray you, you don't collapse. You don't beg. You vanish. You let the silence do the damage. Because the moment you stop needing loyalty is the moment you start commanding it. And that's when they realize they were never loyal to you. They were loyal to what you never made them earn. You've seen what happens to the obedient. You felt the betrayal, the silence after sacrifice, the absence of fairness. Now you face a choice. Repeat the cycle or rewrite the rules. If you want to stop being crushed, you must stop living like someone who's waiting to be saved. Because no one is coming. Not the system, not the boss, not the person who said they'd never leave. And that's not a tragedy. That's freedom. Machiavelli never said life is fair. He said power is earned, not by begging, but by building. So build. Build a mind they can't manipulate. Build a presence they can't ignore. Build boundaries so clear they echo before you speak. This is not about revenge. It's about reconstruction. Reforging your identity into something unbreakable. Start by studying the rules. Not to obey them, but to understand how to bend them. Know when to play invisible, when to say less, when to walk away not as defeat, but as dominance. Because strength is not always about confrontation. Sometimes it's about detachment, about being so grounded that chaos cannot reach you. The world expects you to be reactive. They expect you to panic, to fight for their validation, to chase their crumbs. So don't disappoint their expectations. Withdraw your energy from places that don't deserve it. Starve the systems that feed off your compliance. And while they scramble for attention, you build leverage. Learn skills that can't be ignored. Create value that doesn't beg. Develop a presence that speaks before you do. You don't need to roar. You need to rise. Quietly, strategically, like a shadow. That becomes unavoidable. This is not about arrogance. It's about authorship. About finally realizing that your life was never meant to be lived by their design. So design your own. Set your standards. Enforce your space. Refuse to explain your evolution. The right people will adapt. The wrong ones will fade. Let them. Machiavelli would tell you, the lion survives by strength, the fox by cunning. But the one who blends both becomes untouchable. You must become both, not by discarding your morals, but by protecting them with fire. Because good intentions without protection are just invitations for exploitation. So, protect them. Be kind, but calculated. Be generous, but guarded. Be open, but not exposed. Your softness is not the problem. Your lack of strategy is. Fix that. Because in this world, goodness without strength is silence. And silence without presence is death. But presence backed by clarity, that's power. The kind of power that never begs to be seen. It demands nothing, yet takes everything it chooses. And once you taste that, you'll never go back. And when they wonder how you changed, let them, because you didn't just survive. You rewired the rules. This wasn't a motivational speech. It was a wake-up call. Because no one told you the price of being blind. No one told you that in a world ruled by perception, loyalty, and silence, the kind-hearted often become prey. You thought being good was enough, that doing the right thing would protect you, that your pain meant something, that your sacrifices would one day come back around. But now you know, they don't. Not unless you change. Not unless you stop waiting for justice and start creating your own terms. This is not about becoming ruthless. It's about becoming responsible for your own power. It's about owning the space you've always shrunk yourself to fit into, and realizing that the world never hated your goodness. It just loved your compliance. Machiavelli didn't write for kings. He wrote for survivors, for those who got tired of being used, for those who were done being stepped on, dismissed, and silenced. He didn't teach you to destroy. He taught you to endure, with intention, to rise not blindly, but strategically, to speak, only when silence has done its job. You don't have to become heartless, but you do have to become clear, because clarity is the antidote to manipulation, and presence is the death of exploitation. So, ask yourself, who benefits when you stay quiet? Who profits when you stay small? And what would your life look like if you stopped waiting for permission to take up space? This isn't the end. It's the first page of a new script. Written by you, played by you, defined by no one. No more hoping to be chosen. No more bleeding for applause. No more mistaking obedience for virtue. You've seen the lie. Now, you choose the truth. Not to be feared, but to be free. Now tell me, are you ready to become untouchable? Then start here. One thought at a time. One boundary at a time. One quiet move at a time. The world won't save you, but you can write the story where you no longer need to be saved. And that is the first taste of real power.